Hey friends, today we're going to be looking at the new Olive Ave Pigment 2022 collection that was just released for fall, and just from this palette alone, I am so excited. I know I was just talking about not really feeling the fall shades, especially since we're still in August, but this is getting me excited, so let's get into the swatches. So the first shade that we're starting with is called Venetian, and it's described as a rich antique ruby red cream with berry undertones. I absolutely love muted berry shades like this so much. And as you can see, this one has a beautifully smooth and buttery formula, and it provided really great coverage on the first coat, though I don't know if I would call it a one coater. Maybe if you did a slightly thicker first coat, or if your nails were just a little bit shorter than mine, you might be able to get away with it, especially since it is a bit of a darker shade. But yeah, this one was perfect on 2 coats. The next shade is Sumac, which is a deep burgundy with a strong gold shimmer. I think this is such an alluring kind of shade, and I love how fine the shimmer is because it gives it almost a velvety look. I think it's just so beautiful. And as you can see, this has insane coverage on the first coat, where I think I could call this a one coater, especially because it is a darker shade. I did end up doing 2 coats just because I wanted to see what that looked like, and I think it built up the base color a little bit more, so when you don't see that shimmer, it almost makes the base color look super dark. So yeah, this one is stunning. Next up we have Copper, which is described as a bold ginger cream. So when I first read the description before getting these in the mail, I immediately thought this was going to be a yellow shade, because I was cooking with ginger recently, so I was pleasantly surprised to see that this was like a red kind of ginger shade. But yeah, this one is a beautiful fall staple color, almost reminds me of like pumpkin puree or something. The formula was not that bad, but I definitely needed 2 coats for full coverage. The next shade is Emerald, which is a mossy olive green linear holographic. So I'm not sure if anybody else gets bothered by shade names not matching the color. This is definitely one of those times that you want to make sure that you should always read the description of what you're buying, but yeah, there's nothing emerald about this shade. It is definitely a very yellow leaning green, which personally I think I would call like an ugly pretty color. You'll have to let me know if you agree with that or not. I know olive greens are very popular in the fall, so I could very much just be alone in that. But yeah, this one had great coverage, perfectly opaque in 2 coats. It was just a bit of a bummer that I couldn't see the hollow under my desk light. Next up we have Zinc, which is described as a dusty celadon green. I think this shade is so beautiful and so soft, and it had a really great formula too. It was very buttery, but still a little bit crelly-ish, where even though I have great coverage here on the first coat, I feel like you could still see through to some spots on my nail line. So I did need 2 coats for full opacity, and I think it built up the color a little bit more too. So overall, I just love how this looks. Such a big fan of this shade, and I think this could even work year-round, not just for fall. And lastly, we have Cerulean, a cross between a cadet blue and a cerulean blue cream. So this one had another great smooth formula. It was a little bit more on the crelly side, where some spots were a little bit sheer. Like you might be able to notice I have a bit of a bald spot towards the top left of my nail. So it's not going to be a one coater, but easily opaque in 2 coats. I don't think you would need a third unless your nails are like really long. But yeah, this shade is just so beautiful. I think it's a perfect transitional shade because there is still a good amount of brightness to this, but then there's also that dusty feeling that just makes it work really well for transitioning into fall. Now onto comparisons. I'm comparing Venetian to Currant from last year's pigment collection, which you can see is definitely in the same family, but Currant is a little bit more on the vampy side. I also have Whoberry Pie from Loud Lacquer, which leans more into those berry tones, so they're definitely very different on the nail, although they are very much in the same family. So I'd love to know which of these three you like the most. Next for Sumac, I don't really have anything quite like it, so I'm comparing it to Pigment from last year's fall collection. These are obviously not dupes. Pigment is way more of a true coppery metallic kind of shade, but they are both incredible, and here they are in just one coat. Next for Copper, I'm comparing it to Cirque Bowery, which looks super similar in the bottle, but it's actually a little bit warmer and more red on the nail. I also have Loud Lacquer's Away Game, which again I thought was super similar, but it dries down even darker and yeah, definitely leans a little bit more rusty and warmer. So here are these three, definitely not dupes, but all three of them are just perfect fall shades. For Zinc, I want to quickly show it next to last year's green just to show you how different it is, because at first I thought maybe they're similar. Definitely not. So this is Terra. Sorry for the mispronunciation. But as far as similar colors go, I have Cirque Rockaway, which is definitely really close, but a little bit darker and a little bit more teal maybe. And then I have this shade called Sea Glass Olive from Terra Beauty, and I actually think that this one could be a dupe. It looks extremely similar in the bottle and on the nail in direct lighting, like I'm going to show you, but in indirect lighting, Zinc is a touch darker, but both of these have a similar formula. So if you happen to have the Terra Beauty shade, I don't think you would need Zinc, but you'll have to be the judge of that if you can tell if these are dupes or not. And lastly, we have Cerulean, which, like Sumac, is pretty unique to my collection, so I'm just comparing it to Spirulina from last year's fall collection. It's pretty similar in the bottle, but as you can see, Spirulina is a little bit darker and more gray leaning, and there's also a faint shimmer in there. But on the nail, it actually looks even more different. I think Spirulina just dries down a lot darker. So yeah, these are definitely not dupes, but both are just gorgeous blues. And that concludes my swatch and review and comparisons for the new Pigment 2022 collection from Olive Ave Polish. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on this collection, what you think of the colors, the formulas, if you've tried Olive Ave before, or if you're interested in this being the first time. I am just so excited about this launch. I am always impressed by Walker's color stories, and I just generally love the Olive Ave formula. The brushes, I think, are just so perfect to hug my cuticles. And even though I might be a little disappointed in some polishes, like the hollow, for example, being super, super subtle, I feel like you can't even barely tell on camera, but there is a subtle sparkle in real life. So there might be, some misses, I guess, compared to others, but overall, these are just absolutely stunning, and I really can't recommend them enough. So if you're interested, I have some more information in the description box down below. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.